Hey everybody, welcome to Obscurities in Miniatures. Take a look at this very Diablo-ish looking head I got here. No, it actually isn't Diablo. It is the Flame Demon from Clay Cyanide Miniatures. Now, when I saw this, yes, it did have a bit of a Diablo-ish look to it, I have to admit, but that wasn't what actually got my attention. What got my attention was the fact that it was a very High Lord Tamburlaine style model, in the fact that it had way too many limbs, way too many spikes, and way too many wings. It just is perfect for the kind of model I like to show off. Why don't we show you the rest of the body? So here we have the torso, and you can see it is appropriately spiny and sticking in every which way. Let's set that there. What? There's only two hands, you say? No, of course not. Why would we have only two hands? Why have two hands? And you can actually have four hands, right? So we got a big flaming sword here. And that actually attaches under the other hands. And then we have another open hand that's just going to go kind of like so. And then we do actually have two legs. Unfortunately, there was a power surge when I was printing these, and you can see here they just stopped at the top, and then everything on the print bed just turned into a big flat mess, but thankfully these printed like 90% okay, so I'm just gonna call it a day on these. And yeah, they are appropriately spiny and pokey, and I don't know how I'm gonna paint these because they hurt. And they just kind of line up right here. I'm obviously gonna distress the contact points a bit before we glue everything on. And then, why have only one tail, or a tail at all, when you can have two tails? So actually, the tails are what are going to attach him to his base. And his base, I might add, is a big, giant, semi-glossy at the moment, flaming pile of skulls. So this is going to be a fun one. No, it's not a top. And then in addition to that, there are four wings, two sets of wings, one in the front, one in the back, and they have these cool little dragon heads on each of them. And unfortunately, one of them decided to just put out at the very end. That was the only other mishap. At least the leg one, I'll concede that because we had a lot of high winds at the time, and we had a power surge, and that's what caused that. This one, I don't know. Everything else was fine. So, quite a few parts. Can barely fit everything on the screen, but I'm going to grab some glue. We're going to get this guy all primed up. And yay, no more of that Vallejo one that you guys don't like the color of because, number one, I'm out. But number two, for whatever reason, every model that I used that stuff on ended up being super tacky. Didn't matter the material, resin, metal, cast resin, printed resin, plastics, everything got super tacky afterwards. That drove me nuts. So, thankfully, no more of that. We'll have good old-fashioned Tamiya Gray on display here. So sit tight, let me go take care of that. Alright, folks, we've got our Flame Demon as done as I can figure out. So, this was a interesting challenge in trying to figure out just what I was going to do with it. So I got everything all nice, neat, angled. I kind of figured out what I was going to do with the wings. Unfortunately, I contacted Clay Cyanide actually about this, and I never got to hear back, but I'm assuming they've been busy. I know it's a lot of work running a Patreon. So I figured, what the hey, let's just give it a try. And based on the CG sculpts and renders I saw, I think that's kind of how they go. With the wings at the top. Looks kind of neat. What frustrated me, though, was that after I tried to line everything up, you can see he is a little off-center. That was kind of frustrating, but it is what it is. At least he's pretty solidly attached, and it is quite a big base to keep him pretty balanced. I haven't had any issues with him tipping over yet. I just always, with a model like this, am concerned that things are going to go awry. But overall, it looks pretty solid. I did have to use a bit of green stuff in there, but then again, when I have really thin connection points, I always like to make sure that there's something extra surrounding and supporting it. So what I ended up doing was I put a little rod between the two wings. So the wings are actually attached to each other. And then from there, we went ahead and put a little bit of green stuff and a rod where they both met into the backs. So that way it was a little bit more sturdy. Same with the arms. There's a little bit of green stuff on both of the bottom limbs because I really wasn't sure. There was no clear spot for things to line up. That's my biggest issue with this thing. It just wasn't very clear how things are going to go together. Sometimes models are really intuitive. They're really clear-cut. You know, everything's keyed up. And even when they're not keyed up, there's really some clear spots where you want to put things. I wish that was the case for this because I think it is a neat design. And if you don't mind doing a little bit of extra hobby work on your end, I think it is a fun model. I have absolutely no idea what I'm going to be doing to paint this other than lots of reds and oranges and yellows in there. It still gives me a very Diablo-ish vibe. I think maybe it's just the head, but the body and wings and everything like that are not really selling it as much on the Diablo side. If you're curious how big it is, again, I did print this at regular 100% natural size. I didn't tweak it or do anything funky with it. Which is funny because the skulls that are adorning the base there are quite large in comparison to our witch hunter. But, you know, he's a big bad demon, so what are you going to do, right? I still like that facial expression if I can get it in there. So, yeah. Overall, nice looking model. It's just a bit hampered, I think, by a lack of clear-cut spots where things need to go. And I think that's something that, at least with a 3D sculpt, is easily fixed and, you know, there's workarounds available. I know some Patreon sites have actually gone back and updated, changed files when things were noticeably not cooperating. So hopefully, at least, everything worked out okay. I think for the average printer who's not going to want to be goofing around with support rods and green stuff and stuff, it might be more of a challenge. So I would say do your due diligence and take a look at the files just to be safe. Take a look at this video if you're thinking about it. If you don't mind that challenge, I think it is a cool looking model to go forward with. I will put a link down below to both Clay Cyanide's Patreon and their My Mini Factory store. They do tend to put out quite a bit of interesting and unique stuff. I got to give them credit where credit's due. I mean, they've had some interesting monthly choices on their Patreon that I don't think I've seen anybody else do. So that is always a plus in my book. So again, summarize things here. Cool sculpt, just frustrating in that it wasn't very clear where everything needs to go, but the end result, I'd say, is still worth it, other than the fact that I got it somehow off-center. And if you don't mind that, and you do print it, hopefully, I'd love to see yours, and hopefully you can get it right. With that said, this has been High Lord Tamberlane with Obscurities and Miniatures, saying thanks for watching, and we'll see you back here soon. Bye-bye.